and gentlemen, let's go. Travel, life, and fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's go.
You're listening to the Life Adventurous Podcast, presented by Say What Radio.
The Life Adventurous Podcast is for fun-loving people who want to find, create, and live with adventure as a norm in their lives. Not just that type of adventure that makes you shit your pants, but the type of adventure that lights up your soul and helps you to feel even more alive. I'm Jenny Holla, your podcast host, and welcome to Your Life Adventure.
Hey, and welcome to the next episode of The Life Adventurist. So I got something that's going to be a little bit hard for me to talk about today, but I figured that there would be somebody else who could benefit from this. And know that this is something I'm still learning and still working on myself. I'm going to relate this to sports. I don't know if you've played sports before or you know somebody who's played sports, but I grew up playing super competitive sports. Softball was my main activity. I also played soccer and I played volleyball. And I traveled all over, mostly with softball. I played on top elite teams. I had full sponsorships. I actually went to Hawaii and California playing. I got a full ride in college. I had a very amazing experience as it related to sports. I was always a starter, always one of the top players, always worked really hard for that, but also some of it came naturally / I worked hard. It was a combination. And so as I've gone into adulthood, I continued to play softball, volleyball, and some soccer, but I mostly have been playing softball. And what I want to talk about today is the life of a bench warmer. And maybe that's not the exact right thing to say because maybe it's not about the life of a bench warmer, but it's this concept of being a bench warmer in a sport. And then I'm going to see if I can tie this over into life and share with you some of the lessons I've been learning. Because for the first time in my life, I have become a bench warmer in the sport I absolutely love, which is softball. So before we get to that point, I'll kind of fill you in a little bit on the progression and how that's been going. So I graduated college and I started playing competitive softball, traveling around and all that stuff. And I played volleyball just a little bit and I played soccer just a little bit. But those two sports, I never had a real deep attachment to be the best. I mean, I always want to be really good. That's always what I strive for. But I found in my 20s when I started branching out and doing different things that, I was taking on salsa dancing and I was trying to do all these different things. And I was so used to being one of the top performers in sports. I expected myself to be a top performer in everything I did. And it was kind of tough being out in the social Latino dance community because when I first started going out there, I could not even tell the difference between salsa, bachata, merengue, all of those different styles of music. They all sounded the same to me. And what's crazy is I didn't even grow up with any type of dance background. If anything, I was known as the booty dancer. I totally was the booty dancer. Growing up, I was always twerking and moving it. That's kind of just what I did because I thought it was funny and people's reactions. I usually just did that. And I mean, I had some rhythm, but I was pretty uncoordinated. So it's kind of funny that I had put so much pressure on myself to be one of the best dancers when really I had just taken it up. So I started noticing this trend and realizing in my 20s that there's just some things I'm going to have to let go and be okay with not being the best, but still showing up and giving it a good effort and making sure that I'm having fun while I'm doing it. So I learned that lesson and I started to release any type of attachment to volleyball or soccer, to be the best or to try to rock out because I just knew I didn't have time to really dedicate to those two sports from a level of mastery or a level of, the level that I would like to play at. Now, softball, on the other hand, softball was always my sport. And for those of you who don't know me or have never heard of me before, and this is your first introduction, I'm only going to share this just to give you perspective to what I'm about to go into with this whole bench warmer idea. Is I've been inducted into Hall of Fames. I was inducted into the University of Rio Grande Softball Hall of Fame, Athletic Hall of Fame there for the college. That's why I went to college. And I was also inducted into the local county where I grew up, Softball Hall of Fame. So I was inducted into 2 Hall of Fames for softball. So, I mean, I was pretty good. I've always loved softball, excelled, done really well, all that, right? So graduated college, played softball all the time, really good, all over the place. Then what happened is I started having this itch to really follow my dreams. And I've always wanted to build a business. And so I started going down that path and meeting people. And I really want to do and create and be a speaker, author, and coach. So I started hiring mentors and going to personal development events and just going all in. And what happens to me, and I don't know if this happens to you, but for me, it totally happened where every mentor or speaker I heard, they would tell me that I had to work nights, weekends, and lunch breaks in order to make my dreams happen. And I took that literal and I gave up everything. I gave up hanging out with my friends. I gave up softball. I gave it all up and I backed off and stopped playing because I was like, all right, if I want to make my dreams happen, that this is what I have to do. Now I'm going to pause for just 1 second because if this is kind of speaking to you, I really want to unbox that just a little bit because the concept of working nights, weekends, lunch breaks is really about what are you willing to sacrifice that may be not helping you get to your goals or maybe just kind of like lack time or whatever. Maybe you're spending a lot of time watching TV or just doing stuff that isn't helping you as an overall person. Because everything I believe in as a life adventurist and as the author of Rock Your Lifestyle is it's all about making sure that you're taking care of multiple aspects of your life so that you don't just focus on one thing like work and then get burnt out and you never have time for fun, adventure, freedom. What about your family and connecting with them? What about your friends? What about your social life? All of these things help you to step into more purpose, more freedom, more passion. Okay, so the concept of nights, weekends, lunch breaks is that of looking at your life and seeing where you may have some wiggle room to be able to cut out activities that really aren't serving you right now, that could give you more time to be able to work on that dream, but not at the detriment or sacrificing of your social life or the things that you absolutely love. I can do a whole other podcast on that, so I'm just going to let that go and we'll talk about it later, but let's go back to the story here. So I quit softball. The years are kind of running together for me. I didn't play for 4 or 5 years. I picked it up a little bit here and there, but I just mostly was so focused. And I had decided to start playing again a couple years ago. Came back into the scene, hadn't played in a while, had gained 30 pounds, was super overweight, hadn't thrown in a long time. And once again, I expected to be the best, one of the best, right? I expect to be really good because that's all I ever knew was softball. But hey, it takes some time to get back in the swing of things. So I've been working on that and getting back in. And a lot of people know Jenny as she was awesome, she was great. And here I'm coming back and I'm trying to prove it and I'm trying to force it. And I've been going through all kinds of different mindset issues. So enter the bench warmer. This is the first year in my life that I have been at the bottom of the lineup or sitting the bench and not been one of the go-to players. And I'm telling you, it is tough. It is so tough. And it's something I never realized how tough it was. I never realized or appreciated all of the other teammates I had over the years who had the position on the team where they were on the bench and they had to come in on demand and perform on demand. You know how much crap can happen between your ears? You know how much crap can happen and all the shit you're talking to yourself in between your ears, and then when you gotta go perform, you end up doing the stupid shit again, right? So I was that bench warmer this weekend. I played a little bit. I really didn't perform. The numbers didn't deliver, and it's tough. I mean, it's really a tough journey to be a bench warmer. And so if I were to link this over to life, because everything we do, it doesn't just have to be sports. Sometimes when we put a lot of pressure on ourselves or have expectations or we're attached to something, or maybe we're holding on to things from the past, or we're expecting, or you know what, honestly, maybe it's an ego thing. Maybe it's something with the ego. The ego is really craving that attention, craving those people going, oh my God, you're so amazing. Or it's hard to admit, but for me, some of it was ego. And honestly, I was super embarrassed to be sitting the bench. And my husband, Jay, told me, you know what? Everybody sits the bench at some point. Sometimes you're just not performing. It is what it is. You know, you have to release that attachment. So here I am on this journey, learning what it's like to be a bench warmer and different aspects of that, and not even playing the position I love to play. I love to play outfield, but I'm playing catcher. And this is different. These are different things for me. And in talking to my husband and talking to Jay today on the way home from this tournament, I love the example he gave me because he gave me an example from like a music perspective. And I don't fully understand what it's like to be in a band, but it made sense because I'm so in first person, and what first person means, you're so in your head and you're not stepping out and observing the situation from second person, which is other people's point of view, or third person, which is like if you were to take yourself and be like fly on the wall looking down at everything. I'm so in first person in the softball world that his example hit home. And that is, in band, there's first chair, second chair, etc. So everybody wants to be the first chair because that's, you know, the person who's the best, the lead, etc. And so he told me, he's like, look, you know, when you're second chair and that's where you're at, you have a very important decision to make in your head. Do you tell the story of, I will always be second chair, I will always be carrying all the other musicians' equipment, and I'm just not good enough, and all of that? Do you tell that story, and then that's your reality because that's what you're telling as a story? Do you tell that story? Or do you say, you know what, badass musician, I'm going to rock this out because that opportunity that you get to play and be in the spotlight to prove like, look what I've been working on and here's what it is. When it's time to perform, can you and do you perform? Because those moments are the defining moments. And nobody wants to hear the excuses around, well, you know, I wasn't in the spotlight all the time, so I'm not used to it and I don't really know, and oh, I wasn't ready, and oh my God, like nobody really wants to hear that. And while we can empathize, right, like and understand, like, yes, those were the circumstances you were facing in that situation, it's still about like, how can you perform? Like, how can you bring it when it's time to shine? So, like I said, the tie into life, I mean, there's so many ways you can tie this into life. This could be your career. Maybe you're always overlooked. But if your story is, I'm always overlooked, and that keeps happening and that keeps playing out. Versus when you do have the chance to shine, are you free and clear of all the gunk in your head? Do you feel strong and ready to go because you've been working on this and you know it and you're practicing it and you know your worth? So you're able to shine in those moments. And here's the other thing. Sometimes the situation you're in, the team you're on, is not the team you're meant to be on. If I'm going to bring it to a business perspective, right, and we'll take it out of sports, I know some people in my life right now who are absolutely brilliant at what they do. But unfortunately, they are in a corporate environment that continues to shut them down, overlook them, and continues to move on and hire outside people even though they have an inside resource right there. And that kind of stuff can beat you down if you let it. Because right there, knowing your worth and getting out of that situation, just like softball, I was the bench warmer today. Is that my story? Doesn't have to be. For the person in corporate America, we are constantly overlooked. Does that have to be your story? No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be your story. As Jay told me today and reminded me, is that you have all of the control to create the story and to be able to put the energy and be able to put the work in to be able to create a new reality. You don't always have to be second chair. You don't always have to be overlooked. You don't always have to be the bench warmer. So how can you put the pieces together to put you in the absolute best situation possible? One of them's mindset. What are you saying between your head? What happens in your head between those two ears of yours? What happens in there? What are the things you say to yourself? What are the stories that you tell yourself about this situation that are empowering you or disempowering you? So that mindset is one of the pieces of this equation. Second piece is the team. What team are you on? Is the team helping you or hurting you? And if it's hurting you, how can you find a team where you can be and bring value? How can you find a place where you have purpose and you feel a part of something bigger where you can really shine? Sometimes it's not meant for us to make it and force it to work on this team that isn't working for us, versus we could find another team where we just shine and we get elevated and we have all these amazing people lifting us up. And I feel feel like there was a third one, but it's not coming to me right now. But I would say those are the two most basic things. If something like this is happening in your life, like if you're the bench warmer in your life somewhere, how can you start to shift that? How can you start to really create more belief and momentum and confidence in your life? And that's starting with your mindset and looking at the team. And really just being nice to yourself, not being so hard on yourself in the process. So I'll continue on this journey of learning what it's like to be a bench warmer. And I'm choosing right in this moment that this will not be my reality. Because if it is, I will lose my interest. It will slowly fade and die my interest in softball. It'll slowly fade that passion that I love so much about the sport. It'll slowly fade. It'll slowly fade. And I'm not ready, and I don't want that passion to die. And it's my choice right now, just like it's your choice right now if you're experiencing something similar, on how you can start to take back control and create that new story. Till next time, guys. Have a great one.